European Union leaders have begun a difficult summit to push for a crucial agreement with Turkey to curb the continent's massive migration crisis, despite threats by Cyprus to sink the deal. The plan proposed by Ankara last week to a desperate, divided Europe was hailed by German Chancellor Angela Merkel on Wednesday. Angela described it as the first real chance to end the influx of refugees and migrants. But the ambitious proposal, under which Turkey would take back all asylum seekers arriving in Greece, faces heavy criticism on several fronts. EU Council President Donald Tusk admits there is hard work ahead as he chairs the summit of 28 EU leaders on Thursday before they're joined by Turkish Prime Minister Ahmet Davutoglu on Friday. Well, for more insights into the proposed migrant deal and what to expect, we're now joined live from Brussels by CCTV's Elena Casas. Elena, of course, the European leaders are meeting to push for what analysts have described as a difficult migrant deal with Turkey. Now, if approved, how is this deal going to impact Turkey, Europe, and of course, the flow of migrants?
Well, the idea is that if the deal was approved, then Europe will then take one Syrian who's currently living in a Turkish refugee camp for every one asylum seeker who's returned from Europe to Turkey. But at least according to draft documents that have been revealed to journalists this morning, Europe is now saying that this would be up to a maximum of 72,000 people that Europe has space to absorb within existing relocation schemes. Important to bear in mind, of course, that these are the same sort of relocation mechanisms that have been so unsuccessful so far that out of a planned 160,000 people, just 937 have been resettled around Europe. So the track record that European countries have of resettling these people is not great to begin with, and now they're trying to set a limit of perhaps 72,000, at least according to the draft, which would of course be a drop in the ocean compared to the more than 2 million Syrian refugees who are currently in Turkish camps. Then there's the fact that even if this can be agreed, there's no guarantee that these people will agree to go back to Turkey. It's important to remember that we are talking about people, not parcels that we can choose to pass around between countries as EU leaders wish. So I think it's probably fair to assume that asylum seekers who are currently in Greece or somewhere else in Europe might put up some resistance to the idea of being returned to Turkey, where many of them have already spent some time and were not keen on the idea of staying there. So there are certainly a number of practical obstacles as to how people could actually be relocated even if this deal is approved.
Now, in addition to those obstacles you've mentioned, we understand, of course, that the United Nations has raised concerns about the proposed legality of this deal. How does Europe plan then to justify this act?
Absolutely. The UNHCR says that this may be contrary to international law, given that Turkey is not a signatory to the Geneva Convention and it isn't giving Syrians living there full refugee status. And of course, we wouldn't just be talking about Syrians being returned to Turkey. People of all nationalities, many of whom would have the legal right to apply for asylum in Europe. The people being sent back wouldn't necessarily be failed asylum seekers in the sense of people who have applied in Europe and been found not to qualify for asylum. It could be Syrians who truly are escaping a war zone. So the EU is trying to justify this in a legal sense by saying that lawyers would assess every individual case of a person in Greece or wherever in Europe to make sure there was no legal reason why they shouldn't be returned to Turkey before they were deported. But as I say, in many of these cases, there seems to be a sound legal argument for an NGO or human rights group challenging this deal in court on the grounds that these people are entitled to asylum in Europe and Turkey doesn't fit the criteria to be declared a safe third country for asylum seekers, which is what the EU wants to do.
Well, of course, it's definitely clear that some tough talks lie ahead there in Brussels. Thank you very much for that update, Elena Casas, live for us in Belgium.